YouTube family, what's going on? All right, so we're going to be talking about one of my favorites, ribs. All right, so long story short, both of my parents were raised in Arkansas, like in the deep woods, and so I grew up with very flavorful, good, down home cooking, which I picked up some of those skills, I guess, along the way. Uh, so if you really want some good ribs, I'm going to give you the tips on how to do that. I'm not going to have samples of ribs laying out here and all the flash animated graphics and stuff. Nope, we're just going to get right down to the point. In my other video, which will be made next, we'll be talking about the same version, but doing them in the oven, because some people like to do it that way. This is going to be for those people who like to do it on the grill, especially using charcoal. Well, I guess we can probably squeeze all that into this one video. It'll just be a little bit longer than I really wanted to, but anyway. All right, so you're going to get your slab of ribs, and what I usually do is I'd leave them. Usually we get pork ribs. You can do it with beef ribs too. Beef ribs are a little less forgiving as pork. You can kind of abuse pork and it'll bounce back, but you can do the same thing with beef. It's up to you. Modify this as you need necessary. So I usually leave them in the package. I cut a slit at the far end of the ribs, and I will pour in a little bit of lemon juice or a little bit of lime juice, like a cap full at the most, right? Like maybe half a cap. Then what you're going to want to do is pour in some Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of pink Himalayan sea salt. If you don't have that, regular sea salt will work. And if you have any apple cider vinegar is the best, especially stuff with the mother in it. I like to use that. And basically just let that sit. Now, if you're in a rush, let that sit for about an hour. If you have the time, I would suggest doing that, but letting it sit and marinate in its own juices for 24 hours. You can also put a little bit of cooking oil in there, especially like if you've got bacon drippings, olive oil, something like that. Just let it all sit in the bag, marinate for 24 hours. You can put it in the refrigerator if you want. You can also leave it out. I like to leave mine out just because it starts to let everything break down and to relaxes the meat. If you go back and forth and put it in the freezer or fridge or something like that, it tends to make it tighten back up again, and then it has to, it just makes it tough to me. So once you do that, now we're going to the grill. So I usually then will take my seasonings. Everyone's got their own customary, mix or blend or whatever else. But your standard seasonings, and I'd like to do it light. I don't cover it heavy like they do in competition or like you see a lot of people doing. I like light. So salt, pepper, paprika. Let's see, garlic. Not really garlic salt, just garlic pepper or garlic powder. Onion, sprinkles. Depends on if you like it hot or not. Some different seasonings. I usually put some cayenne on there, cumin, a little bit of Lowry, something like that. Or you can get some taco seasoning, mix a little bit of that in there and put it on there just very lightly, just light enough to cover it, not thick. All right, so after you've got the light seasoning on there, and I'll explain why you only want it light, is because you're going to probably either put on more later on, or you'll be adding some kind of sauce to it. So once you have that done, you're then going to go to your grill. And if you're using charcoal, if you're using gas, which is easier to control, sorry, I'm looking at mine right now. Mine has all the compartments, which gas or grill or offset smoker and a sear on there, so it's kind of nice. It's really nice, especially for the price. It's only like $250, which is outrageous, but it's also made of a little bit cheaper material, so it's not it seems like it's not going to last as long as it should. But anyway, so if you're using gas, you're going to want to put the gas on low, either low and slow or hot and fast. It's an age-old thing. I usually tend to go low and slow. If you're in a rush, hot and fast is good to go, but this is going to be for those people who want it to be really good and really tender and really juicy. So you're going to put the gas on low, not as low as it possibly can go. I'd say probably about a quarter from 0 up on your gas. For the charcoal people, I recommend a little apple wood. Peach is okay. Plum kind of puts a interesting flavor in it. You know, your hickory, even oak, it's not bad. I usually put like 1 piece in there, and I put that on later on, like sometime into it. Okay, so what we're looking at here is building a small charcoal pyramid, lighting it on fire, lighting it up, and basically keeping that as low as possible. You don't want a big flame. You want the coals good and hot. You can add coals to it if you want. So now the meat's ready to go on. You're going to want to put that in aluminum foil, and with all the juices, as much juices as you can pretty much put in there, and seal it up. Put that on the fire and just let it sit for at least an hour and probably 10 or 15 minutes. It's that serious. Just let it sit there, let it marinate, let it bubble, let all the juices and everything get in there and break it down, and steam it and infuse into the meat. And then at about 100, or at about usually your temperature should probably be around 200, 250, somewhere in there, I'd say. A little higher, a little lower, depending on how you want to do it, but somewhere in there is about right. Otherwise, just a low, steady fire. You don't really even need to know the temperature. And once you do that, you're going to basically the same thing with the oven too. We'll just combine it. Screw it. Same thing with the oven. Just wrap it up, put in something sealed, low and slow, for at least an hour and a half. If you're doing it in an oven, almost 2 hours that way. On the grill, at about that same hour and a half mark-ish. I like to uncover mine, and then what I like to do is take it and flip it so that it is the meat side down at this point in time. Okay. Once you do that, you're going to let it cook really slow until the whole top basically just gets crispy. Okay, so like a reddish, purpley hue, brown, crispy. Once that's done, you might need to add more coals at this point in time if you have a really low, slow fire. It's the only bad part about charcoal. So add some more, and then what you're going to want to do is, if you have a higher rack, you're going to want to put it up there. But if you don't, you're going to want to make sure you have a low, steady fire of coals. And then after that's going to take about 30 or 40 minutes, somewhere in there. All right. And then you're going to flip it over onto the side with the membrane. Now, a lot of people pull the membrane off. You can. I don't, and here's why. It's because that membrane actually is really tough, but it serves as kind of like a guide for me. So once I put it in there and I leave it on that side, when that membrane gets crispy and breaks through real easily, and the meat draws back from the bone and shows about a ½ inch to an inch, then you know you're just about done. And at that point in time, I like to put my last bit of seasoning on top, or in conjunction, I will go and get my favorite barbecue sauce, or for those of us who make their own, I'll make my own and then put it on top of there and just let it cook in. And you can even flip it back over if you want. I try not to, but let it cook in. So now you're in about you're about in 2 hours. So you let that sit for another 20 to 35 minutes, and your ribs should be smoking awesome. These are some of the tips and techniques and tricks that I picked up from my dad, who was a very famous barbecue maker and all that good stuff in the South. He used to own his own gig and sell his barbecue sauce by itself, and the ribs, and my mom used to do it too. So if you do these tips and tricks and techniques, you should have some awesome ribs. And to finish up with the stove, you pull it out of the oven, put your sauce on. Once the meat looks like the same, where it's now your ribs are going to be tender, but they're not going to be they're not going to have that crispiness. They're not going to have the little burnt ends a little bit. So what you got to do is you take a sauce and you put it on, and then you put your oven on broil, and you broil the rest of it for, depends if you got, go up to 400 or 500 or 450 depending. So you want to keep an eye on it. You're going to want to put it close to the iron and check on it every 2 minutes, because it'll get away from you real quick and then you'll be sad. And nobody likes sad ribs. So just check on that, and bon appetit. So that's about it. Hopefully everything turns out well for you guys. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget that bell, subscribe, and like. And I will talk to you guys later. Happy eating.